At the end of 2022, RaceRoom did a thing. The MX5 Cup is a brilliant privateer racing series where for a mere $60,000, Mazda will give you a $30,000 car that can only legally be driven on a track. Of course, Assetto Corsa and iRacing have had this car since the late Cretaceous, but now RaceRoom has it too. What these games also have in common is Laguna Seca, which means we have the same car and the same track in 3 different sims, and you know what that means. Let's get testing. First, we need to answer this question. What is an MX5 Cup car anyway? Assetto Corsa will tell you it's this thing that weighs 908 kilograms and has about 160 brake horsepower. Maybe it's this version from iRacing with its 181 brake horsepower and scant 892 kilograms. It can't be RaceRoom's portly 1140 kilogram monster, can it? The official specs say the car must have 181 horses and weigh no less than 1122 kilograms, so I'm going to back RaceRoom here as having the most up-to-date and legal MX5 Cup car. And no surprises, it is the latest release after all. The issue with the rest of the grid is that the specs for a Cup car have changed from year to year, and trying to find out things like if the weight of a car includes liquids is like trying to get a reliable release date for a Gran Turismo game. It's near impossible. Assuming the numbers are real and doing some big brain math, we can see that iRacing has the horsepower per kilogram win here, with 0.202 horsepower per kilogram. AC is a very close second with 0.198, and RaceRoom is just way off the pace, pushing only 0.161. So when we get to this bit, if all things are equal, we should see iRacing and AC neck and neck, with RaceRoom being left in the dust. On the left is RaceRoom Racing Experience, in the middle it's iRacing, which leaves Assetto Corsa on the right. I did 15 laps in each car, and what you are seeing here is the best lap out of each run. Skipping to the end of the lap, we can see it's all as expected. iRacing has, it's just clearly lost, hasn't it? The results are exactly the opposite of what the math predicted. RaceRoom stops the clock with a 138.3, AC lags behind on a 138.9, and iRacing only gives up a 139.5. So we have a spread of times, but what do they mean? How does this stack up to real life? Well, here are the same cars at the same track. In a real race, they are doing high 39s all the way to 42s on an average lap. I did high 38s to mid 39s on my best laps, so I'm going to say the game times are all in the correct ballpark. But this still leaves the question, why was RaceRoom faster? Now initially I was going to analyze apex speed, but with me being the incredible genius that I am, I decided I didn't need to see speed on the UI, because you can see it right here on the dash, behind the glove. Well, that worked out great. But we don't need apex speeds where we're going, because of this. Here each car is matched up at 100 km per hour out of the final turn. Now if we play it forward, we see that when RaceRoom hits 125, AC is only at 123 and iRacing is just at 122. The difference in lap times can be explained right there by the difference in acceleration alone. And this got me thinking, if we're going faster, does this also mean that we're burning more fuel? At the start, all cars have 45 litres of fuel, even if the dash on RaceRoom says 44 while the UI says 45. Let's just ignore that and skip to the end. As RaceRoom crosses the line, the LED is showing 29 litres, so the UI must be showing 30, and it is. That's 33 with all the 3% of fuel burnt. Next up is iRacing, which is kind enough to do the math for us, showing a slightly more fuel efficient 68% left in the tank, giving us a 32% of fuel burned. AC is spoiling the party, keeping all the fuel numbers to itself. But if you sit in the menu and play with the fuel load, you can see the analog gauge change in real time, and that looks like 25 litres to me. So 45% of fuel used. Wow, okay. That's quite a bit more than the 32 to 33% we are seeing for the other two. Of course, AC is using an older spec of Cup car, but that's still quite a difference, especially considering that the old car can be upgraded to match the new spec. But hey, I can't claim to know what the real numbers should be. Who knows if any game has actually nailed the fuel usage. What I can judge though are the visuals. Kind of. You see, we run into this issue again of what exactly is a Cup car? Because if you look at this angle mismatched footage, you will think that Assetto Corsa got it totally wrong. What you're seeing here are two 2016 MX5 Cup cars. But the real life one is completely different, having its LCD in front of the dials, whereas in AC, it's built into the steering wheel. But if we look at this pic, you can see that no, they nailed it. It's just that they modeled a different variation of the car for AC. Now if we switch to iRacing and RaceRoom, any difference in model you notice is likely due to the graphics engine or my strange difference in field of view between the racing games. The main things you'll notice are the LCDs, green in RaceRoom instead of blue, and having the gear and speed indicators in different positions compared to any other example I can find. But RaceRoom gets a pass on both, as sometimes those displays do look green, and I can't confidently say that the display isn't configurable to match what we are seeing. Compared to the real life footage, they both excel. But where none of them excel is sound. We have the drone of Assetto Corsa, the higher pitched drone of iRacing, and more bassy sound of RaceRoom, which strangely sounds like it has a blow-off valve. And maybe it's just because I have the word engineer in my job title, but this is another area where I need to put my hands up and say, what even is this car meant to sound like? You can run off to YouTube for an onboard and say, here, this is exactly what it should sound like. Kind of meaty and bass heavy, sounding like it has a large aftermarket exhaust bolted on. But then I too can run off to YouTube and counter with this weed whacker. The same spec of car can sound drastically different depending on its trim and exactly how it's recorded. So ultimately, just pick the one that sounds best to you, because trying to judge most accurate is a fool's errand. Damage though, now we're talking. For this test we're just heading straight into the barrier at the first turn and seeing what happens. And well, not much. The AC MX5 Cup takes it like a champ and drives away if nothing happened at all. On board we have a cracked windshield and primary colours letting us know that we have some bumper damage. Good thing too, because otherwise there's just nowhere to tell we went full throttle into a wall. Next up is RaceRoom and some bonus background recording of me losing it. There's just something about the unrealistic way cars impact walls in sims I find hilarious. And if the tyre rolling away wasn't enough to confirm it, the onboard footage tells us that this car is going nowhere. Which leaves iRacing, and honestly, this one's got to be my favourite. The car bouncing over the gravel, the huge sound, and then the way the car defies physics to be thrown to the side. Then the way the engine is still trying to tick over and over but failing. These crashes might not be the most realistic, with AC especially letting the team down, but iRacing and RaceRoom are both pretty satisfying. Ultimately, the MX5 is a blast in whatever game you're playing. Which got me thinking, there's an MX5 in Gran Turismo 7. It's not an MX5 Cup car, but if Mazda can start with a base MX5 and turn it into a Cup car, then surely I can, right? So I booted up GT7, got my MX5, plastered my brand all over it, then set about buying some speed. With the specs about as close as I could get to the official specs of a 2016 Cup car, I hit the track. The first lap out was an encouraging 1:42, which is right in the ballpark I was looking for. But instead of celebrating, I threw a tantrum and gave up. Let's rewind it back to the start. This is the first corner of the first lap, and I'm not too sure how well you can see it on screen, but this car has demons. The suspension is all sorts of wrong, with the car acting like it's having a seizure in corners. It takes all of my ability just to keep it on the track, and nah, scratch that, it takes more than my ability. So what went wrong here? Well, here's a short clip stolen from Discovery that's going to get my entire life demonetized. What you just saw was an MG road car transformed into a race car with a lot of cash and some world-class mechanics behind it. Yet on its first run it was near undrivable too. This is because new suspension needs new tuning. You can't just put a street car on a diet of steroids and sticky rubber then expect it to behave. I am certain you could tune this thing to match the other cars in this vid, but like I said in my YouTuber tune video, I can't tune to save my life. So there you have it. There is no one game taking victory here, no ultimate MX5 to be crowned the best. And this is the way it needs to be, because when you dig into it, all the real cup cars have their own little differences too. The takeaway here is that the MX5 makes a great race car, and there isn't a sim on the market that doesn't do it justice.